Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to invite David Edelman to Marketing Refocus as our keynote speaker. He's the newest member of our advisory board with over 30 years of experience as a chief marketing officer. David has helped several consultancy businesses with product and digital marketing transformation. He works as an advisor to top executives at startup, mid-sized and enterprise level organizations driving large-scale change from both client and client service sides. So here's David speaking on competing on personalization.
Thank you, Akansha. And I'm hoping that everybody can see my presentation. Hello, everybody. It's really quite an honor to be here. And I thought the best way to talk about how things are changing is to actually just simply start with a story of something that has recently happened to me that I think lays out the reality of where we are. So I live in Lexington, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. Massachusetts is a fairly liberal state and put some laws on the books that actually gave some incentives for people to put solar panels on their homes. And when that was announced, my wife and I were actually quite intrigued by that, thinking that we might have a house that would fit in terms of the scale of what we can do using solar panels. Somehow, out of the clear blue sky, we got some good old snail mail, actually, a letter that looked very intriguing that said, here's a personalized website that will show you how much you can save with solar. And in the note, inside the envelope, was a personalized URL with our address. It was enticing, didn't necessarily seem just per se like junk mail because it seemed rather specific. And it even talked about the new incentives in our town for solar. So, okay, I clicked. And lo and behold, I actually saw a Google Earth image of my home with solar panels superimposed on the house on the angle where sun would be most effective. They had actually laid out the number of panels that they thought they could actually fit on our house and had a running commentary on the side about how much we could save, how much those panels would generate. So that was from a Google Earth image that they had processed. And then they had also apparently gone into Zillow and pulled information about the size of our house. And using that, estimated how much energy we actually would consume, and did the calculation of how much we would save if we actually put solar panels on. And so this is all within one click, all being put together, completely personalized. And after that first snail mail, everything here is completely online. So then it says, if you'd like to talk with somebody, click here and we can discuss this with you. So I click and I go immediately to a sales rep who has all of my information immediately on her screen. She knows what I have seen. She sees all the information. I don't have to explain it again. She greets me and we have an extremely productive conversation about how this all works, the way the company, Sungevity, sets this up and manages it, how the economics work. And she can actually do all the modeling based on the information about my home. A few questions she asked me to just clarify things. And this is all happening incredibly rapidly, very efficiently. At the close of the discussion, she sends me a link that gives me the information about different leasing options that I can play around with, whether I want to buy or lease, and I can just figure out what I'm most comfortable with. as well as the email link to 2 neighbors who have actually worked with them who are willing to serve as references. So I do my due diligence. I work on figuring out the right lease. I contact my neighbors. They say glowing things about longevity. And so we finished the deal. They set up, everything is completely online at this point. They schedule the installation. I get notification of when the installers are going to come. It's all set up, all done outside. Here's a picture of the actual setup now on the side of my house. And then on my app, which I have now downloaded, I can actually track how much solar I'm saving. And in fact, I am saving about 20%, and they guarantee it. And if for some reason it goes lower, I actually get a refund of the amount. So this was quite an experience, completely seamless, all except for that first letter, which did get my attention. Everything was done completely online, all dramatically orchestrated by this company, Longevity, who essentially had a series of engines behind a number of different functions, all of which operated based on coordinating information. So there was the marketing to reach me, the sales interaction to close it, all the coordination of the installation, which actually happened with a third party, Boston Solar, who came to our house to put that in. The actual lease was financed by Citi, who they had to coordinate with as well. They actually arbitrage selling back any extra sunshine that we don't use. They take the credit for it, but that allows us to have a cheaper lease. And if there is any service needs, and in fact, we did have a squirrel who nibbled through some of our wires, they coordinated coming. And immediately on my app, I knew right away something was wrong, and they came and fixed it. So here's a company that's really putting together all the different aspects of not only marketing, but where customer experience is heading in a digital era. And it takes a lot behind this to very deliberately think through the experience and especially the data flows and support that enable that experience. And I'm going to get a little cute here. I'm a former consultant. And so I like to think of in terms of acronyms that are a bit memorable. So I'm going to frame how to think about the lessons from my longevity experience with the acronym IDEAL, and coming up with the ideal experience. And the first part of the ideal experience is to be able to integrate a wide range of data feeds. As I noted, they're pulling information from Google Earth, where they're scanning homes. And I've actually talked with the chief marketing officer of Longevity. They actually have an algorithm that goes through Google Earth images, town by town, to look for homes that have the right angle, size, and lack of trees to be able to get significant solar. They also pulled information from Zillow to be able to understand the percentage of energy that they would generate. And so they were using intelligence to combine all of those and scan those to find a signal that I would be somebody worth reaching out to. So they're using that to discover who to reach out to, how to get to them, when to reach out, what to say. And they have been constantly testing different methods and outreach. That snail mail was not accidental. They had actually tried email and a number of different things till they settled on good old direct mail as being the best way of doing it. They engaged me through highly, highly personalized interactions in a very seamless flow. They enabled me to find value in the data by sharing with me how much I could save, but then letting me play around with different leasing options and how the economics of that all worked. And they are constantly learning, testing, optimizing, and whatever they find, they then scale. And so it's a whole thinking and a mindset that's based on these digital engines that are using information, combination of machine learning and good old basic algorithms to drive a highly personalized experience. So why is this possible now? Well, data is everywhere. As you just saw, Google Earth has an amazing amount of information that Google has APIs that are available for you to be able to process that information. But there's so many things that are out there in terms of data. You can actually have data on when I did take vacations, where I went on vacations, whether I commented on that, data on the weather at a given point in time, which can affect the kinds of messages. You could even, from a voice processing perspective, when I call in, actually tell my mood and whether I'm aggressive or calm, and use that to guide the conversation. The amount of things that can be digitized now is remarkably powerful and can be used as a feed in the ideal model generation. And then there are APIs that certain sources of data have opened up, like Google Earth and Zillow, that platforms that use data as engines, such as Salesforce, make available. You've got companies like Grazidi who are creating connectors that make that data able to move. Consumer data platforms like Snowflake that can house all of that data and bring it together. And newly emerging companies, one is called Narrative, that actually have marketplaces for you to seamlessly buy data with APIs against it to plug it in, some of which may be personalized, but some of it could be more things like granular traffic information, weather information, things like that. And of course, there's new kinds of advanced analytics that make building these engines possible and help you do things that you could never have done before. One is what's called customer journey analytics. And a company I've gotten to know there is called Pointillist, where they can use artificial intelligence to track all the touch points somebody has had with your company, track their journey, and spot where there are breakpoints in that journey, which you can then use to either fix the journey or contact the person who had a troubled journey and be able to help guide them around that or recover from something that had happened. It's a very powerful new area, this whole field of customer journey analytics. And there are companies who are building whole operations based on installations of tools like Pointillist to manage things like onboarding, like customer service interactions, billing, to make sure the end-to-end flow works well. You can also use advanced analytics to simulate scenarios. One advanced tool called ELSI allows you to take all of the media that you're spending across every single different channel that you're spending it and create simulated scenarios for different ways of allocating the budget to come up with the highest impact way to invest your money, but then track it on a real-time basis and be able to make changes. So you're managing that media portfolio as if, for example, it was a hedge fund. There are intelligent tools now, one called OfferFit, for example, that proactively creates all kinds of multivariate testing so that you can try to figure out what is the best offer, the best message, the best time of day, the best channel. And it's constantly testing and then using that data to optimize something that would take dozens of data scientists to do if you wanted to do it in any kind of scaled way. And then there's also tools that allow you to see things that you never could have done before. Medicine is one of the best areas where this is happening, where tools such as this one from a company called Vidya Health analyzes dental x-rays to help come up with observations on diagnoses that dentists might have missed, because they can actually see patterns, and they are programmed to understand things that could lead to downstream broader health implications that would mean it's better to pay the money for a cavity up front than to wait and let it become something worse down the line. So these are powerful new tools that allow you to do new kinds of capabilities. There's also changes in the way you can deliver an experience. So personalized videos. When I was at Aetna, we used a company called Sunday Sky to create personalized onboarding videos. You're a new member of the health plan. We can explain the exact plan you bought, the economics of it, tell you who the doctors are we have on file, if there's any gaps, things you have to fill out, whether you've got yourself set up for paperless. We had 70% of people watching a 4-minute video. Satisfaction went way up, renewals went way up. This kind of personalized video engagement is incredibly powerful. You can also match people with the best customer service rep who can deliver the best service or the best sales. There's a company called Affinity that uses artificial intelligence to match inbound callers with the available reps to find the right next rep who would make the interaction most successful. And this is leading to things like 5% increase in terms of sales just from implementing tools like this in a call center. And then a last example I'll give is a company called Persado, who has a natural language and phrase database that can optimize literally the words that are used for each individual, and knowing the pattern of words, coordinate that language and messaging across every channel that a particular customer touches across their journey with your brand. So from an analytic perspective and from an experience perspective, there are now a broad array of tools that you can use to enable and deliver these new kinds of experiences. And there's APIs now that allow you to tap into the information that can power them. One way that this came together for me when I was Chief Marketing Officer at Aetna was to create what we called the Health Behavior Influence Engine. This was a mostly digital engine where we were working to help members do things that would make them healthier, and would also help them save money. So things like making sure people stuck on the drugs that they were on, got a flu shot, got a colonoscopy if they were over 50, got their levels checked if they were a diabetic. And there were over 50 different indications of things that we could do to help people get healthier. Because if we can help people get healthier, they are healthier, they save money, we save money, and it's all a virtuous cycle. And it's what a brand in the insurance market for health should be doing. We set up pods, and there were 5 of them, where integrated teams, as you can see here, of people work together in a very agile way, adapting a lot of the practices from agile software development, where we had bi-weekly sprints where we would constantly be putting out new tests, test and learn, test and learn, test and learn, trying out new sources of data, new analytic tools, new customer experiences, new channels that we might use, and basically finding out constantly what would drive lift, and as soon as it did, launching that more broadly. All along the way in running these, figuring out how to get faster, how to work all of the processes so that it wouldn't take so long to get stuff out the door, because it used to take 6 weeks to get programs out the door. We need to get them out in less than 2, ideally 1. And so these operated as in a war room, taking advantage of all the kinds of tools and capabilities as before, building an engine that was constantly reaching out to our members and successfully getting them to change their behaviors. Tens of millions of dollars in margin have resulted from this, and the program continues to scale every year. So it really comes down to how you want to build your digital engines. The whole nature of generating a personalized experience really comes down to thinking it through as an end-to-end engine of data, analytics, delivery, and optimization. So what is the vision for how data can help you? What will be a data-first experience? An experience that is powered by the best possible information you can have on that customer, where it's always, that information is always optimizing the customer experience and the way you are delivering it. What are the sources of that data? What literally are the places where you're going to source that data? How would you integrate that data, analyze it, maintain it, optimize it? An explicit data strategy has to come behind the customer experience. It's not something off to the side in IT. It's an inherent part of how you're delivering. What are the analytics engines for making decisions, for simulating, for optimizing? Given the examples that I showed before, there are new tools that can help you do this, and there's certainly a lot of capabilities and learning now about how to use artificial intelligence to make this faster, smarter, and dramatically more scalable. Are there partnerships that you should be crafting with technology companies who can provide tools, services, or integrations? I mean, certainly that is something that companies like Grisidi have been providing with their clients over the last few years, and demand is certainly scaling. And then, probably most importantly, when you're doing this, are you rethinking the organization and the processes for how you are operating and supporting those engines behind the experiences? As I showed in the Aetna example, it's not about a handoff between different functions, such as a marketing person here who then happens to call up an analytics person who then gets an operations person. No, these are people working together every day in an integrated fashion with stand-ups every day at 11 o'clock, working in an active pod to constantly get things out the door, figure out what works, test new things, optimize, and scale. And it's almost as if it's product management, that each of these experiences, it's not a project, that's a one-time thing you get out and off the door. These experiences are part of your brand. They are what defines it. Sungevity's experience with me defined its brand. Every aspect of what they did in marketing, sales, and service essentially is a product. Somebody has to manage those, manage them for the right kinds of outcomes, constantly figure out how to innovate, get feedback, and make it better and raise the performance. That's a very different mindset than a functional one that's just trying to get campaigns or any kind of activity done in a project or one-time wave, getting it out the door. So I believe, as Alok said earlier, this is a golden time for marketing, but it's not necessarily marketing in the way it may be more narrow, it may have been more narrowly defined in the past. It's about marketing that's going to change the basis of relationships that brands have with customers because of their ability to adroitly use information to make every contact point personalized, smarter, and constantly better. It's an issue of your brand and where it's going to go. It's an issue of how you manage your people and your processes. And most of all, it's a rethinking of who you are, because now everybody is not only a marketer, but you're also a data manager on behalf of your customers. So thank you. And with that, I don't know if we have time for questions, Akansha. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Yes, we do have questions. Our audience is absolutely eager here. And I see a few questions in the Q&A section. If you'd like, I can read them out to you. We have a question stating, David, hi, I have one question. How can brands use data to get a holistic view of their target audience?
Sure, there's a lot of different ways for brands to use that data. First, starting with the people who actually are your customers, and there's a hell of a lot more most people can learn about their own customers. One of the things that is easier to do now with tools such as CDPs, customer data platforms like Snowflake, and customer journey analytics tools like Pointillist that I mentioned before, is you can bring together information about everything a customer is doing with you in whole new ways than you could before. And artificial intelligence can stitch that together. So for example, for something like Pointillist, you can actually timestamp all the interactions. So you can understand all the different ways customers move through your system. Who moves differently? What are the different segments, the different ways people move? Do people start on the app and then call? Ooh, that's a problem. They should have just gotten it done on the app. So you can find out things through that tool that you never could before about customers and how they are behaving. You can also do much more to understand the people who are coming to your website, for example. Understanding data about who they are, using overlay data to understand them, but then tracking them after the website and seeing how further they interact with you. I think the most powerful ways of understanding all of your customers come through watching their behavior, as opposed to just simple demographics. Psychographics. Behavior is the most powerful thing, and now there are just new tools that allow you to do that.
True. Well, that absolutely makes sense. And we have more questions here. There's a question from Smriti. Given the rising concerns over data privacy, how can brands balance both personalization and privacy?
Yeah, you don't want to be creepy. Creepy is not good. But at the same time, people do want relevant, personalized experiences, and they react well. So the number one thing is to make the absolute most use of the information you have from existing customers. Where privacy is most concerning is where companies are providing information, getting information from third parties without the authorization of somebody. If you've got information from your own customers that you can use better, that by far is the most powerful way to use it. And the vast majority of companies have barely begun to skim the surface of what their first-party data can actually tell them. But there's also a lot of other information outside that frankly is public. Information on Zillow about the square footage and purchase price of a house, that is public record data, at least in the United States. That is available, and it can be used to enhance an experience. How somebody may have clicked through on somebody else's website, that starts crossing a line, and I think that's where you're going to see privacy regulations clamping down on it. So you got to start from the inside out, making the most use of data that you have, but there are plenty of still data sources you can access that are public or that are anonymized that can still enhance your knowledge base.
Yeah, totally. Makes sense. Well, GDPR and CCPA have really put our guards up there. So yeah, good advice, David. We have a few more questions here. This one's from Monali. David, what do you suggest is the right way to use information throughout the customer journey?
Well, the right way to use information throughout the customer journey is to follow that customer, and to understand what that customer has with you. So, what have they bought? What is the full extent of products they have? How have they been using those products? And what has happened to them? What is the context? So, is somebody, for example, a regular user of the online app who's now calling in? Well, that's important data to know. If they're a regular user of the app who's calling in now, something went wrong. They couldn't get something done on the app. Or if somebody was a regular user of the website, and all of a sudden stops for a long period of time, are you losing them? Have they become, are they a win back potential? It's from analyzing patterns and uses of the people who are interacting with you. That's why I think things like customer journey analytics tools are going to be so powerful, because it really does unlock data that most companies have across many different sources of record, across different functions, and it uses AI to stitch that together and start to plot the journey so that when you do interact with people, you've got all the right context.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's another one here. How does a brand ensure personalization as prospects move along the buyer's journey?
Well, that's very similar. I think it's when a prospect first hits you, you don't know that much about them besides what they clicked on.
Correct.
You can understand how they got there and use that information, especially if you have different links from different sources, depending on, was it thought leadership that they clicked on? So you can use that. You can also use information that comes in often, especially if they're on a phone, where they are. Sometimes geography can be actually a powerful determinant of something. And then gradually through each interaction, picking up more about what has interested them, what has not, where they have responded to a call to action, where they've gone dormant. Is there a time of day that they seem to interact with you that you should follow up when they might be more regularly interested in doing research on your topic? So all of these are signals, and increasingly, and it sounds like a lot of different signals, but increasingly these tools now that are available are able to help you parse those and figure out what really is the next best action based on the data that you've got about somebody, which gradually grows as they touch you more.
Correct. Oh, totally makes sense. And we have more questions here. Given how quickly market trends evolve, how can we create more innovative and personalized customer experiences?
Yeah, I think one of the traps that we have to avoid is just taking what we've got and optimizing down. I think one of the big problems with a lot of what has happened in the past in digital marketing is you narrow and narrow and narrow your audience. So you get more and more and more targeted, which means you're dealing with fewer and fewer people. You may get a higher ROI, but you get lower growth. And that's not good. You need to innovate because you got to get to the people who don't respond. And you've got to maximize your market. And many of these tools now are helping you understand the best option for more people. So, for example, a tool that I've used, OfferFit, allows you to do multivariate testing of different kinds of offers, content, channels, all of that across a broad customer base. So instead of just having one thing that you're doing and figuring out who's best for it, you can constantly throw different ideas into that tool, and it'll start doing proactive testing to figure out the best people for that tool, for that idea, at the right time, at the right channel, and optimize then against them. And then you can keep adding more. And so eventually you get a whole portfolio of offers, times of day, channels that allow you to reach a much broader customer base.
Right.
So I think a lot of these tools actually open up more chances for bringing innovation to a broader market versus traditional analytic tools that help you optimize against narrower and narrower segments to the exclusion of everybody else.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that, David. And I'm afraid that's all the time that we have for Q&As. And thank you so much, David, for being here with us today. That was incredible. You've surely given us a lot to think about. And I'd like to tell our audience that for all the questions that we were not able to answer, please just keep shooting them across, and we'll be sure to get back to you. And we can just continue on the chat. All right. Thank you, David.
My pleasure. Have a
You
good
as
day,
well.
all.
Thank you.